So a lot of the time you'll hear developers say they want to take like an MVC approach. Now, what does that even mean? Well, MVC stands for Model View Controller, and it's a method of structuring our code and our files, and it aims to make our code more modular, reusable, and easier to maintain. It's not essential you use the methodologies of MVC, but it can be helpful, especially as your projects get larger. So we've already seen the M and the V, models and views. So views are where we make our HTML templates that a user will see, and models are how we describe our data structure and we use them to interact with the database. So the last piece of the puzzle is controllers. Now, controllers will be the thing that forms the link between our models and our views. They're like the middlemen that use models to get data and then pass that data into a view. Now, we've actually already done that directly in our route handlers, right? But the idea of using controllers is that we just extract those handler functions into a separate controller file. Then we can just reference those controller functions in our routes file. Again, though, you don't have to do this. The idea behind this is just to make our code easier to manage and to understand. We're just splitting our code into different areas or files, and then each area or file has its own job to do. So our route file matches incoming requests, and it passes those requests to the correct controller function. A controller communicates with the appropriate model to get data into a view, and then the view then renders that data into its template and it gets sent to the browser. So all we're basically going to do is extract our route handler functions into a separate controller file to make everything a little easier to read and understand. So then, remember, the aim of all this is to make our code cleaner and neater. So what we're going to do is extract all of these different handler functions from the routes, and we're going to place those into a separate controller file. And then we can just reference those controller functions from this routes file. So what I'm going to do first of all is create a new folder called controllers. And now notice we have models, views, and controllers, MVC, right? And inside here, I'm going to create a new file called blog controller.js. So all of our functions for this resource, blogs, so all of these functions that we use in these routes, they're going to live inside this blog controller file. Now then, what I'm going to do is create functions using a similar kind of naming convention as MDN. So that looks something like this. I'm going to create a function called blog index to get all the blogs and inject those into the index view. I'm going to use blog details for the name of the function for this one to get a single blog, which is this right here. I'm going to use blog create get to send back the actual form. So this is a get request. Blog create post to add a new blog, and then blog delete to delete a blog. So that's the naming convention I'm going to use for these controller functions. So the first thing I want to do is create these functions. So let me do that. Const blog underscore index, and that's going to be equal to a function. Oops, let's spell this correctly. I can never do that for some reason. Index. This is equal to a function. And inside the function, we want to do all of this logic right here, right? Not that one. We want all of this one right here. So let's cut it from there and let's paste it in here. Now then, first of all, we can take in the request and the response object, because remember, in these functions, we get access to that request and response. So I'm going to say request and response. And then we also need to import the blog model. So let me grab that from here, because we're not going to need that anymore in this file, because all of the logic is not going to be in here anymore. It's going to be in this one instead. So let me paste this at the top so we have it right there. So now if I say at the bottom module.exports is equal to an object, and inside this object we're going to output the blog index as a property, right? So now we have access to that from anywhere we import this file. So let me just save this for a second, and we're going to import it over here. So I'm going to say const, and then blog controller is equal to a require, and we want to require dot forward slash to come out of the current folder, which is the routes, then go into the controllers folder, and then we want the blog controller, right? So now we have access to this, and we can access this function on it, blog index. So now instead of this function firing right here, we can just say blog controller dot blog index. So now all it's going to do is get this function right here, and it's going to place it right here. So it's doing exactly the same thing. It's just that now we've extracted it from here and we've placed it in a controller file. And we're going to do that now for every single function down here. So now let's do the next one, which is blog details. So let's create that function. So const blog underscore details, and that's equal to a function. We're taking the request and the response object. And in here, we just want to paste all of the details. So that's this thing right here. So let's cut that from there, and let's paste it right here instead. And then I want to export that as well. So blog underscore details, like so. Okay, so that's that one done. Let's go and reference that over here as well. So I'll say here that this should be blog controller dot blog details. Okay. Now, the next one over here is blog create get. So that's the one for sending back the actual form. So when we click on that, that's that request. So let's create this function down here, const blog underscore create underscore get. That's equal to a function, request and response goes into that function. And inside, let's go and grab this thing right here where we render the create page. So let's cut that from here and paste it inside here. I've noticed a spelling error, so let me fix that. So we need to export that function as well. So blog underscore create underscore get, and we can now use that over here instead of this function. So blog controller dot blog underscore create get. Okay, so 2 more to do. Let me go back and let's do the next one, which is blog create post. So in fact, let me just copy this so I'm not typing out the same thing over and over. Blog create post, and then inside here we'll delete that, and then we'll export blog create post. And we need to get all of the details from here where we send a post request, which is this thing right here. So let me grab that and paste it right here. Now we can reference this function over here instead of this. So blog controller dot, and it's blog create post. And finally, we need to do this one down here. So let me go back over here, and this function is called blog delete. So we'll say const blog delete is equal to a function, request and response goes into that, and then inside we want to get all of this logic right here, cut it from there and paste it right here, and then finally export that, which is blog underscore delete, like so. And then we can come back over here and we can say right here blog controller dot blog underscore delete, and that is it. Awesome. So now we've extracted all of our different handlers into a blog controller file right here. So we're keeping all of the controller logic separate from the routes, and that way our routes look a lot neater, and we're kind of modularizing our code a bit more so it's easier to read and easier to update in the future. So before we get too carried away, let's just make sure this all still works. Nothing should change. Everything should still work the same way because we've not changed the functionality of anything. So, yep, the homepage works. If I go to About, that should still work. If I go to New Blog, that should still work. Try to add this. Submit. That still works. If we go to Details, that works. If we delete one, this should work, but it's not doing. So let's just go back and see what's going on over here. Okay, yeah, my mistake. This should be delete, not details. All right, so we just had the wrong controller method applied to that. So if we go back over here now and try to delete this, hopefully this should work. If we click on delete, yeah, it works, and then redirects us back to the homepage. Awesome. So now our code is structured in a much more logical way, which is easier to maintain. And for every new type of resource and set of routes, you would follow this pattern. You'd have a route file for the routes, a model for the data, and a controller for the handlers, and then a folder for its views as well. Now, just speaking of views, I think I'd actually like to structure our views a little better too, since at some point we might have multiple different resources, right? You could have users, polls, comments, categories, as well as blogs. Therefore, you might need, for example, a create, a details, an index for each individual resource, right? Now, we couldn't create multiple of those in here because the names would clash. So what we could do is we could scope these by putting them in their own folder. So for example, I could create a new folder called blogs inside views, and then I could place the create in there, the details in there, and the index in there. They're all the views that relate to blogs, right? Then if I had a different resource in the future, I could create a folder for that and do the same index, details, and create in that. So what I'm going to do now, just quickly, is go to the blog controller, and I need to, wherever I'm rendering a view, update that because we've put it in a new folder, and now it should be blogs/create, so it knows to go into the blogs folder first of all. And where else do we do this? Blogs/details, and then blogs/index. And if we save that and come and refresh everything, it should still work the same way. But it doesn't. We get an error. And that's because, remember, we're using partials inside these things right here. And now they're in a different location. So we need to go back to these three things here, and we need to add double dot to each one of these so it knows to come out of the blogs folder first of all, then into partials. So let's do that for each one of these. So that's the index. Let's do details and add a dot in front of that one, and I think it's the top one now, yep. And then finally, let's do create and do a dot here and a dot here and a dot here. Save that. And now if we come over here and refresh, hopefully this works. Yep, everything now still works. Awesome. Okay then, my friends, so there we go. That is MVC. Not essential, but definitely helpful. Alright then, gang, so that is pretty much it. We have completed our project using Node and Express and MongoDB. Now, there are just two very, very small things I want to do to finish this off. The first one is to replace this delete thing right here with a trash can icon. So I got this trash can icon from Material Icons. You can download it from the Material Icons website, or you can go to my GitHub repository and find it there. Remember, the link to that is down below. But I'm basically just going to drag this into my public folder. Remember, everything in the public folder is accessible from the front end. So it's an SVG right here. We just need to then reference this from our details view over here. So instead of this, we can have an image now. So let me get rid of that. And then right here, I'm going to say I want an image tag. Then it's / and it's called. If we go to our controller file over here, where we try to get the blog details, we try to find that ID. If there's an error, all we're doing is logging that error to the console. So instead of this, what I'd like to do is return the 404 page. So let me paste this in, response.render. We're rendering the 404 right here, this view, and we're passing in the title property, remember, because we output the title in the head, and that is blog not found. We can also set the status right here to be 404 if you wish, like so. And now, if we try to render something like this and press enter, then it will try to find the blog with that ID, but it won't find it, and therefore we redirect to this 404 page, which I would implore you to design better than this, because currently this looks really pants. But you know, this is not a design course, this is a Node, Express, Mongo course, and hopefully, my friends, you have learned a fair amount during this journey, and you're in a good position now to go on and start to learn some more advanced things. Now, you could extend this project further if you wanted to. You could maybe add another resource like categories so that you can filter blogs by category. You could add an author property to the blog model and show that as well. You could maybe show the date at which a blog was created on the front end. There is loads more you could do with it. And like I alluded to in the very first lesson of this course, I will be doing more advanced future courses on Node pretty soon too. So that might include Node with Firebase admin, some kind of authentication flow with Node.js, making payments with Stripe using Node, and also I'll probably do a full stack tutorial using either React or Vue on the front end as well. So then, my friends, I really, really hope you've enjoyed this series.